Deepak has a fascinating background, by the way. I'll let him talk a little bit more about himself and then get into the masterclass, but I'll just provide a very brief introduction to get started. Deepak Ramola is a wisdom historian and award-winning educator. He currently serves as a lecturer and life design fellow at Stanford University and co-teaches the Meaning of Life course at MIT. A graduate of Harvard GSE, I assume that means the Graduate School of Education, Deepak, yeah? Okay. He previously served as the Kindness Ambassador, much needed in today's times, the Kindness Ambassador for UNESCO. The floor is yours, Deepak.
Thank you so much. Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us all, and especially this is the first conversation. It's very funny. Last evening, I was telling one of my Bay Area friends, I'm giving a talk tomorrow, and he said, what's the title? And I said, it's called Being Rich Beyond Money. And he said, that sounds like a failed Series A pitch. So anything but that. Anything but that. I thought maybe it is an important anchoring to have on what is the dimension of wealth that we want to explore and how far and along it can go. Some of those glimpses I've seen in my journey of being a wisdom historian for last 17 years and having taught across 35 countries. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to take you a little bit all around the world. I'm going to show you lives of people I've met, some stories. Because I'm a classroom educator, we're going to do some exercises and play some games. So it's not going to be me lecturing about unwealth and non-money to you, but really exploring those dimensions amongst your tables. And at the end, we may get some time to reflect what it truly means to be wealthy beyond money in our lives. Does that sound okay? All right. I say wisdom is earned. It's not something that you can literally buy as a gift card. And to earn wisdom, especially some of which I've collected over the last 17 years, I like to play a game. And if you really win this game, I'm going to do this talk. Okay? Maybe Amita's going to panic when she's like, well, but wisdom is truly earned. So the game is very simple. I've been playing this game, across many different rooms and spaces. The game is simple. You have to clap. All right? On the count of 1, you have to clap once. So let's hear that. 1. Great. On the count of 2, you have to clap twice. On the count of 3, you have to clap thrice. I'm glad. I knew this is one room I don't have to worry about numbers and how they land. Okay. So the game's rules are only this. You all are one team, and I am your opponent. Okay? So you all have to clap together. Even if one person claps off or claps wrong, you all lose and I win. Right? Simple? Okay. Let's start it. 1. You heard that? That's the sound of you losing. When you finish clapping, and you can, and you can still, yeah, this is practice run. You know, we're prototyping our claps. And you can still hear a trailing sound of someone's clap. That is me winning, your opponent, and you not winning as a team. And doesn't matter who claps off, who claps wrong, you are one team, and you have to clap together.
How about beats count and beats clap?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. 1. Good. Wow, you're offended so fast. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. The other thing is be gentle on yourself. Every time I do this round, people become so ferociously competitive that, I've had people have boils on their hands by the end of this activity. So it's okay. Even if you win, none of you is going to win a trip to Hawaii. So you're just doing it for yourself. Be gentle. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. That was just practice run. I'm going to speed this up. Okay. This is level 1 of the game. 1, 2, 2, 1. Wow, okay. That's one person, somewhere. Huh? Yeah, tough group of people. But there's one person who's somewhere trailing off in the side of the room. You can hear it from the soundscape. That's level 1. Good. You guys are really doing well. Now let me ask you, how many of you think you are smart? Come on, be self-aware. Okay, I'm glad you raised your hand. How many of you think you're cool? Okay, I like Emma was like, okay. How many of you think you're smart and cool? Yeah, depends how far into the night and how many drinks down we are. And those of you who have not raised their hands, I'm sure there is some category you fit in out of those three, if not those three. So let's put that to test. I'm going to go super fast, and I'm going to increase at the pace of my numbers. So here we go. 3. 3. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 0. Excuse me, smart and cool people. So easy to trick people. I've been playing this game. I think I've played it with nearly, I think, over 100,000 of people across the world. And only 3,000 people have won this game, or 3,020 or something. And so, I mean, out of 100,000 plus or some 200,000, 3,000 seems like a good small margin of people. So I'm going to give you one more shot, because I really don't want to go from the Indiaspora Annual Membership Forum saying, oh, they didn't win. One more round? Yeah. Yes? Okay. Take a deep breath. Everyone, the competition at the start of this forum feels too much. Okay. 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 0. The best part about this game, since I created it and started playing it, no matter how awesomely you played it, you were like, I clapped on 1, I clapped on 2, I clapped on 3, I didn't clap on 0. You really lose all of that sense as soon as someone claps wrong, and you're like, come on, Okay, I'm gonna tell you why that's happening. That's happening because this game had only one rule. And the rule was, you all are a team trying to win against me. But in the last 4 minutes since I've been counting, I have seen no one check in on their partners and their table mates or the room and be like, you okay? You're trailing along? Is this too fast? When we start to care about the other teammates, we try to pace up to the rhythm of the room rather than our own. So you're playing for me. You're not playing together. We're going to do it one more time. And let's see if you can land at a place where you really care about each other in the way that you want to win this. But this is level. What's your name? Sorry. PV. PV. I see PV is doing this. PV, you're going to be so disappointed, because in a minute, or actually right this moment, here's the last and the final round, and you're going to close your eyes, all of you. Close your eyes, everyone, and just ground yourself for a moment here. When I start counting now, try to not clap for yourself. Try to clap for everybody who's in the room with you. Try to clap for your team, and try to sing to the sound of the room. We're trying to not get to an absolute silence. I mean, it'll be great if we can. We are trying to remove that margin error, just getting as many sounds loosened up to our sync. Okay. Sync to the room. Forget about yourself. Think about your team. Here we go. 1, 2, 2, 0. 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 1, 0. 1, 2, 2, 0. Okay, I'm going to give you one more shot. It's okay. Tune yourself. Take some minute, right? We've just now down to one person clapping off. Ground yourself again. Forget you have to get this right for me. You have to get it right for yourself. Really dissolve yourself for a moment. Think about your table. Think about the room. Here we go, one final time. 1, 0. 1, 2, 0. 1, 2, 3, 0. Hey, everybody, give yourselves a round of applause. You did it 3 times. I just wanted to prove it to you. You can do it. That game is so simple, but it's the hardest to win first time around because that game is about balance. It's not about focus. If it was about focus, every person individually would win. Balancing with the team, getting it right, all of those little nuances. I also play that game to calm my nerves. You know, when you walk into a room full of people who think about a lot of things in the world, from problems to solve and things to do, wisdom can seem a back of the row, the last egg in the casket, sort of a fragile moment. So I do that exercise to calm myself down too. So thank you for winning it. Now how much we are at? 3,020 plus all of you. Few years ago, I was working in Tanzania with the Maasai community. The Maasai, this is from a day when the new chief of the Maasai tribe was appointed to head the community. And I knew by my time there and all those conversations that I'd had that the Maasai are a deeply patriarchal society. And so I turned to my translator, Kai, and I said, Kai, I would love to understand how women operate within this patriarchal setup. And he said, oh, yeah. Which woman do you want to talk to? And I said, I haven't met a Maasai widow. I would like to talk to a Maasai widow. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll take you. You see there? She lives right there. We'll go there. So at 12 in the afternoon, I packed my bags, a little notebook, a water bottle, and I huddled together 2 of my cinematographers to walk with Kai. And he says, it's right there behind those trees. This is 12 in the afternoon. At 1 o'clock, I'm somewhere here. And I say, Kai, we've been walking for an hour. Where are we? And he said, it's just there. Can you see that tree? It's right behind that tree. At 2 o'clock, I am in a cactus forest. I'm like, Kai, I don't know. I think I've seen all of Arusha today. Where is this woman's house? He's like, oh, right after the cactus trees. At 3 o'clock, this is me in the middle of nowhere, and that's my cinematographer ready to give up on me and this project. It's hot, and we are in literally a no man's territory. The only 4 people walking are my 2 cinematographers, my translator Kai, and me. At 4 o'clock, we arrive at this point, and I say, Kai, I think we need to really get to this woman's place. I don't know how much time we have to get back. And he says, you see that house? I don't know if you can see it in that picture. He's like, that's her place. From the moment we left where we were to where we got, I had seen everything. I had seen fresh footprints of a giraffe, an elephant. I had seen zebras. I had seen all the animals you can imagine in Serengeti. When I got to this place, this woman's house, it was worth it. Because this woman, Eva, is a widow. I found out that she lives with her 2 young teenage kids and works really hard all through the day to sustain herself. So I sat in front of her. I had an hour before we had to start walking, 4 hours. And I started interviewing her about her life, only to discover that her husband was working as a watchman in the city and was shot dead. And because he was shot dead, all the property was taken away after his death, and Eva had to really retire to this very remote part of the national park to fend for herself and her children. I said, how do you feed your children? And she said, oh, I go begging every morning, and I get food for them. Do you send them to school, I asked. She said, yes, they go to school 4 days a week. How do you manage that? And she said, every school season, I beg everybody I can find and get enough money to get them clothes. And then if it's not enough, I go into the forest, I chop wood, and then I sell it on the highway so I can provide for my children. At this point, 20 minutes into the conversation, I had heard every tragedy that could happen to this woman that has happened. And so I said to her, do you believe in God? She said, yeah, I'm a woman of faith. I deeply believe in God. And I said, okay, Eva, if you met God, at the end of life, what would you say to him after everything you've told me about your life? And she, without taking a beat, looked at me and she threw her hands up in the air, chuckled, and she said, I would say, Asante, 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 which means thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is the exact moment she, I don't even have to illustrate it for you. This is right after she said that, and you can tell by the smile on her face, it was pretty genuine. And I said, if I met God on your behalf, I would complain a lot. And she said, oh, because you're focusing on all the things that didn't happen the way I would have wanted them to happen. I'm focusing on the part that allowed me to still continue to live and provide for my children. In that moment, Eva had something magical. She didn't have material wealth in the way that we most understand on a large scale. She had something different, a very different kind of wealth. I was fed in her house, even though her kitchen had just literally like a block of wood and 3 cans storing something that she had begged and borrowed that morning. I felt nourished in her presence. And when I was walking back, again 4 hours, I thought of the question Eva made me ponder. If money wasn't part of a conversation, what are you rich in? And how many of us can answer whatever that answer is? And you don't have to now. It's not an engineering exam. And there is no high grade mark. But I would like for you to ponder upon it in your time. If money wasn't part of the conversation, what are you rich in? And how do people experience that wealth? My mother is another great example of that question. That's a picture of me when I was probably in grade 7th or 8th. And my mother was pulled out of school in grade 5. My mother was telling me that morning, again, for the zillionth time, that her grandmother didn't want any daughter of the house to study with boys. So my mother, being the eldest of 8 kids, was the first one to be pulled out. And even though they lived as farmers on the beautiful Tihri mountains in Garhwal, Uttarakhand, my mother desperately wanted to go to school. But the grandmother did not want her to go to school, and my mother was married a few years later. So when I was growing up, my mother would tell me and my sister that story. I didn't go to school. I didn't go to school. You should study. And I used to think it's that reality show pitch, You say enough empathetic story as a South Asian Indian parent, and the kids will start to feel a little emotional and they'll do well in exams. So at age 14, very close to when this picture was taken, I one day came back from school and confronted my mother. I said, "You're the biggest liar in the world." And she laughed and she said, "What happened at school?" And I said, "No, it's funny. You say you didn't go to school, but you're one of the smartest and the wisest people I know." My mother still manages the finances of the house. For a woman who's never studied profit and loss, to know what to save, how much to give, it's phenomenal. She's never read Confucius or Socrates. She's never even heard about MIT and Stanford, where I teach today. And yet she gives the best relationship advice there is to give. My mother, perplexed at my curiosity of questioning her, said to me, "Oh, I didn't go to school, that's a fact. But the truth is, life is my classroom. I'm learning from living." And to my 14-year-old brain, that meant if she's learning from living, that means everyone who's living is learning something. And I thought the population of the world is 8 billion. That means there are 8 billion people in the world who have failed at something and hopefully learned some. There are 8 billion people who love something desperately, 8 billion people who deeply fear something, 8 billion people who dream of something, 8 billion life lessons. And that's a conservative estimate, that you can only give 1 lesson a person, right? Depends how many drinks down the evening you are. Best place to collect life lessons, the bar. So I thought 8 billion people. And my research brain said, that means we haven't capitalized and we haven't nurtured that raw potential of that 8 billion people's wisdom. So since the age of 14, I became the very awkward child for my parents, who would ask everyone he met, "What has life taught you?" And he would write down on my back pages of my notebook every guest who came home for dinner, every person we met at a wedding, every school bus driver, school gardener, community organizer, tuition teacher. I would ask them their life lessons. By the time I was 17, I had hundreds and thousands of life stories from my little town of Dehradun and Mumbai, where I went for undergrad. And I started passing them on, and I taught across different communities, to the visually impaired, to kids in Tanzania. And over the last 17 years, this organization that I run is called Project Fuel, F-U-E-L. It stands for Forward the Understanding of Every Life Lesson. And what we do is we document wisdom from around the world, and we pass it on to communities and people so that we can value who counts as wise and whose wisdom counts. Think of your grandmothers. Think of your parents. They may not be CEOs. They may not be Miss Universes or somebody who wrote a book, but deeply, incredibly wise people who have brought so much in life. Embodying the idea that one of my mentors said to me, everybody is rich, just that some people have money. And I found that a deeply liberating concept because it is true. That was true for my mother, and it was true for Eva, and it was true for every single of the 400,000 people I have interviewed with my team. Harman Kong, one of the friends I have in Irvine, California, who's a wealth management company CEO, wrote a book called Value Over Valuables. And Harman once told me, it's a difference, a slight difference between something to live on and something to live for. And when you can associate and disassociate those two concepts, you can arrive at defining what your legacy will be in the world. And I want to illustrate that by giving you an idea of what it looks like in the world, which you may be familiar with. One is this idea of something to live on, which is the borrowed power. The borrowed power comes from which position you are at, which company you work in, what your resume, your Wikipedia, and your Google search, or maybe your AI tells you about you. It is every single red carpet that is rolled out for you when you are something according to societal standards. Embodied power is who you are when all of those things are taken away. So if I'm standing at Trader Joe's and the line is long, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to wait for like 25 minutes to get to the counter, and you're standing in front of me or someone's standing in front of you, what about that person makes you want to say, hey, long line, huh? Or cloudy day, and get a conversation started? It is their embodied power, which means the way it makes you feel. Embodied power is the kind of power that people do not know how much money is in your bank account, what your stock or your company is valued at. But when they meet you, they want to spend 5 more minutes talking to you. They want to ask 1 more questions, getting to know you. And they want to get deep into understanding who you are, not what you do. It's the kind of vibe check that Gen Zs talk about. The vibe that allows you to feel accessible, open, and embraced in somebody's presence. Ever since I got to California, I cannot tell you the amount of conversations I've had with people who were a VP at Google, and they were like, you know, the day I was not a VP, I didn't know how many phone calls I would get. This is literally a conversation I had with somebody last week. He's like, I thought my phone rang all the time, he said. And it didn't ring as much when I was not that person in that position. And who was I then at 56 exploring that question? There are different kinds of wealth in the world. You know, I mapped out some here. I cannot fit them all on a slide. But there are social wealth, intellectual wealth, experiential wealth, cultural wealth, environmental wealth, physical wealth, financial wealth, spiritual wealth. And you may have many of these or all of these, I hope, deeply. But it is important to pay attention to that you have at least some from this circle. I'm short on time in today's talk, but I want to take you through some of the wealths that I deeply admire in the world, and maybe we can experience together. First is the wealth of wonder. His name is Philani Dalada. Philani is a beggar in Johannesburg, South Africa. He's a beggar, but he does not beg. He's a beggar, but he does not beg. What does he do? Philani collects books, reads them, and then when you stop at the traffic light in Johannesburg, South Africa, he knocks at your window, you roll down and you say, have you read The Alchemist? And you say, what? And he says, have you read The Alchemist? It's a book about a man who goes on a hunt for a treasure, and he makes all these experiences. He gives the best 30-second elevator pitch about that book. And then you say, what happens to the guy at the end? And he says, pull on the side, buy the book. And then he gets you to buy the books, and that is how he sustains. He builds curiosity in you about these books. So famous has his approach become that he now has a library called Pavement Bookworm Library and a foundation by the same name. This guy has revolutionized the begging in pockets of Johannesburg, South Africa, because now nobody wants to stretch their arm and ask you free money. They want to tell you about a book that can change your life and get you interested enough to buy it on the street. Filani represents that idea of wonder and curiosity. This is another example of a woman I met on a flight. I can tell you, I don't know, depends who you are on that day. I'm either the most amazing or the most annoying co-passenger, because I will ask you about your life before the flight lands. I was sitting next to this woman on a flight from Dehradun to Delhi. It's a very short, 20, 25-minute flight. And I said, that coat looks warm. And she said, no, it's just expensive. I said, okay, I'm definitely going to ask her questions. So when we got talking, her name is Sunita Garware, and I said, what is the biggest lesson you learned in your life? And she said, the biggest lesson I learned from my life came from my father-in-law, who was an amazing, amazing human being. So I said, tell me about him. Oh, she said, every time one of my children brought a drawing, kids bring you drawings from schools and kindergarten, and they went to their grandfather and said, Dadu, look what we drew. He would not simply say, Acha diwar pe laga do, let's paste it or put it on the fridge. He would ask questions about those drawings. He would say, oh, there's a house. There are 3 stories to that house. Who lives on the top floor? And the kid would be like, Papa lives on the top floor? And he would say, why does Papa live? I am older than Papa. I should live on the top floor. And then he would say, there's a tree. What fruit grows on the tree? The kid would go, redraw the drawing, come back next day and be like, Dadu, you live on the top floor, we gave Papa the basement. And imagine it's actually an apple tree, and this river flows from here and it becomes a creek and it joins. The week after, they would add more details. The curiosity of the grandfather would make the children feel so seen that they felt they had to be more nuanced in their storytelling because someone cared. And Sunita's life lesson was be genuinely interested. If you are giving your time to something, even if it is 10 seconds, be genuinely interested. We show our interest to people often in the world by details. If I walked into this hotel and I introduced myself to somebody and I said, tell me about you, or even in this room, I can guarantee you the first few things people will tell is where they work or the company they founded. They will tell where they grew up. Or they will talk about something mundane of what they're watching on Netflix or the weather. It's like, oh, good sunny day. Well, it's usually sunny in California, right? Introducing with love is something different. It means to enjoy the process of making someone aware about who you are for the first time. And we meet new people all the time. Do we introduce themselves with love? And what does that mean? It truly means to tell people something that has either been true for you since the beginning of time, since you have come to understand yourself, or something that will be still true when you have exited 4 companies that you co-founded and retired. My introduction with love is, I am Deepak Ramola. I love potatoes, people, and possibilities, in that order. Potatoes disappoint lesser than people. Right people with the right potato dish, lot of possibilities. I also say that so that if you ever invite me to your house, make sure there is a potato dish. It'll make me super happy. I cannot tell you how many aloo paranthas I've had in life because of this introduction. So, we're going to try it for ourselves. You all have notepads and pens. I'm going to give you 1 minute. You all seem like people who are above 30 years of age. So you've had a good amount of time that you've spent with yourself. You have 30 years of data to count to write a 1-minute introduction of love with love about yourself. Take 1 minute. I'll time you on this. And let's see what we get to. You cannot be the Rotary chairman, the vice president, the investor who helped someone raise X amount, evaluations, all of that. You are you. And who is that? You have 30 seconds left. Think of this as an elevator pitch about yourself. But you're not selling yourself. You're introducing yourself. And there's a big difference. I tell my students at Stanford, when you sell yourself, you're performative. When you introduce yourself, you're at ease. You're not trying to convince others that they have to buy into the idea of making you their best friend, their client, their lovers, their mentors or parents. All right, last 5 seconds. Okay. Now turn to somebody on your table. Anyone, maybe you know the person, you don't know the person, and tell them your introduction. Pair up with somebody. Don't do it as a whole group thing. My entire talk will require that time. Last 1 minute. Last 1 minute. All right. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. I was an elementary school teacher. I know how to get the attention back front of room. It always works. If you can hear me, clap thrice. Thank you. I know it's never enough. It's never enough. But allowing you to see that there is potential in getting to know each other beyond cards and resumes. Wonder is a wonderful wealth. In 2017, I asked myself the question, when I went back from Mumbai to my place in Dehradun and my state of Uttarakhand in India, where my parents come from, where I come from, and I noticed a grave problem. There are 1,600 ghost villages because of migration. And so I was curious what I could do to bring attention to migration or to reverse migrate people. I am not, an investor. I'm not in policy. So I thought I should do what I do best, which is play with wisdom. So I partnered with one such ghost village called Sword. It's a 600-year-old ghost village where out of 200 families, only 12 were left behind in 2016. I traced all the 200 families wherever they were in the world, and with my team interviewed every single family member and asked them stories about their lives and about their village and their cultural history. With the 12 families as my ethnographers and a bunch of artists, we went and we hand-painted every single abandoned home in that village. This village became world's first village of life lessons. And we wondered things like, what if you paint a mural so big that you have to trek up another mountain to be able to see it? And you know what happens when you paint a mural so big you can't see it from the village you're in? People start trekking to the other mountain. And when they start trekking to the other mountain and they lived in the cities, they need water, they need chai, they need Maggie. And so the village people start setting up these little shops. And then they start earning money from this tourism. And the 12 families never had to migrate. Not only that, the village became so famous and respected in the country and in the region that the government did a lot of investment to promote it as one of the most visited villages in India. People came for their pre-wedding photo shoot. Of course, right? You paint some walls, definitely there's some pre-wedding photo shoot. There are music videos, and the people started migrating back. We've painted many of these villages from India to Tanzania with the Maasai, all in the hope that wisdom is a currency. And if people wonder what their wisdom can do for their social problem, it can bring back people to these abandoned villages and get governments to develop them. The other wealth I want to talk about is the wealth of humor. You see, I've spoken to monks in Bhutan. I've taught under the Taliban in Afghanistan. I've worked with the Maasai women. I have, taught the sex workers in Kamatipura. I have lived and stationed myself in Syrian refugee camps in Europe. And I have found out that everybody wants the same thing. Can you guess? Faster Wi-Fi. And meaning, but with faster Wi-Fi. Humor is a great thing. I'm not saying it, really. People across the board, they're like, it would be better if the internet worked a little faster. And I was like, you don't want meaning? You don't want purpose? They're like, yes, but after the faster internet. So we're going to do another exercise. I told you I'm a classroom teacher. We're going to see how open we are to the wealth of humor and how humorous are we. I can tell you all the jokes. I can do a stand-up set. But I want you to discover it for yourself as you sit amidst known faces and unknown strangers. You all have paper and pen, I see that. We're all going to draw a portrait. We're going to pair up with somebody we don't know, hopefully on our table. And it can be the person right across. They don't have to be sitting next to you. And you are going to draw a portrait of that person. Now I see some sighs and some people like, oh my God. Here's the thing. I'm going to make it difficult. You are not, before the Michelangelos and the Frida Kahlos invoke in you, I want to remind you, you are not drawing the best portrait of the person. You are drawing a caricature of them. A cartoon caricature has one rule. It should not please the person you're drawing. It should please the observer. And here's the thing. The other important facet of drawing a portrait is you have to exaggerate a feature that you notice on them. So you have to draw a portrait, which means shoulders up. If their nose is big, draw it really big. If their eyebrows are big, if their hair is bushy, make them more frizzy. I'm going to give you solid 2 minutes to do this. And before you go at it, do not show it to them. It's a reveal we are going to do together. Your time starts. Pick a partner, turn to somebody, nod, say hi. Oh, I'm going to get Amita, can we get some pen and paper here? Maybe one more. Yes. Oh, you both can pair up together. Also, one thing that I'll say to you. Do you need a pen, extra pen? I don't think so. Do you have pen? Amita, we need one more pen if possible. You may have a pen? Oh, sure. Thank you. Here you go, ma'am. Thank you. Last 30 seconds. Do not make it perfect. Also, if you're awkward that, oh my God, this person is going to be so offended, they are doing the exact same thing to you. Do not worry. You are having a fun at them. The chances are they're also taking a shot at you. If you're very serious, you're doing it wrong. You should feel butterflies in your stomach. You should feel nervous. And you have to exaggerate something. Cap, teeth, nose. Whatever it is. All right, last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, do not show it. And now, reveal. Oh, amazing. Oh. All right. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap thrice. All good? Everyone safe after you showed them your portrait? Okay. Also, I just gave the instruction. I am not the one who drew it, okay? If you didn't like it or liked it, we cannot control. I see some people are still unpacking what they have revealed. Okay. When you feel ready, we're gonna take a moment to understand we cannot control how people perceive us. So either you can be very offended or you can be very amazed on how someone sees you. And the way someone sees you is not really a representation of who you are. It's really a representation of what this person has been brought up with. What catches their eye? What are their cultural biases? What are some of the things they pay attention to? And it is not to say that person is crazy because you are doing the same thing to somebody. We all are just trying to make sense of who sits across us. And we're trying to have fun along the way. But if you take it too hard, you're like, oh my God, one time, the first time I did this exercise, somebody drew my nose like a potato. And I remember going home and I'm like, does it look like a potato? And I thought, that's the whole point. You don't get stuck on that thing, because if you get stuck on that thing, that means this is how you're going to live the rest of your life. Someone tells you, you don't look good smiling. And there you go, never smile in pictures. Someone says, why do you talk like that, Deepak? You sound like a girl. So Deepak talks like this for 1 hour in a session, and Deepak feels deeply exhausted by his fake baritone. I have tried all of it, and I can tell you, it is deeply exhausting to please the idea of someone's portrait that you think they should draw of you, not what they are drawing of you. When you give people a little room, you give them space to discover who you are and reveal to you how you might be for the rest of them. This is another advice I have from a young 9-year-old Elliot in Pittsburgh. Advice for adults, he titles it. I think adults should think more about positive things in life. Sometimes my mom will get upset when it's raining while driving the car, but children will think about how rain is like a free car wash. So adults can practice this by being happier in life. It's all about perspective. Last two wealths that I want to quickly take you through. It's called the wisdom or the wealth of self. What does that mean? In the context of this story, in 2016, I spent 90 days living with refugees in 5 countries in Europe. I wanted to understand how refugee crisis, especially the Syrian refugee crisis, teaches us about life. When you have to leave the countries you belong to, when you have to leave the identity, the language, and everything you own to scoot into this tent and rebuild life. I met many young boys like Zabi. I met other young men, and particularly this one boy named Hadi. Hadi was a 14-year-old on a beautiful day in Syria when he went to school. When he was coming back, he stopped at the mosque to offer prayers in the afternoon. And when by 3:30 he was home, his entire neighborhood was demolished by a bomb. The distant cousin of a neighbor who was visiting that day saw Hadi in the rubble, standing flabbergasted of having lost his family and friends, took him by the hand to the sea and managed to smuggle him on a boat to Italy. And from Italy, he ended up in this refugee camp called Calais in the south of France, where I met him. This 14-year-old boy, when I was interviewing him, I said, Hadi, what do you think about life, huh? And he says, oh, life is hard, Deepak. I said, yes. And he says, but being angry about it solves nothing. I can sit here and be angry all the time, and I am angry, but it solves nothing. So I go to the French volunteer classes so I can learn the language. I go and stand in the line every morning to get food so that I can get some and give it to the old refugees in the camp. My anger doesn't solve for it, my empathy does. That's a 14-year-old boy, and I don't think so any 14-year-old should learn that. But we live in a world where they do, and I think it's a good reminder. The last wealth I want to talk to you about is my favorite topic on wisdom. I've spent, as I was saying, since 14-year-old collecting life lessons of people. I have collected life lessons with my team from 195 countries. And in all these years, I have realized that we think of wisdom as something that you get when you are across that age mountain with gray hair and wrinkled face and years of experience to reflect about. In fact, a few months ago, when I was thinking about this talk and this conversation, I gave this talk some time ago in India in a hedge fund conference. And this guy said to me, I said, do you have a practice? He said, I meditate. I said, what do you meditate on? And he said, valuations. You know, I'll let you decide where that joke lands. But wisdom does not really come with age. And science proves it. My own research, along with some incredible colleagues in neuroscience, now prove wisdom is a factor of experience, not age. I have met 108-year-olds, and I can tell you, some 100-plus people that I've met, I've had a headache after meeting them because I thought, that's what you learned in 100 years on this planet? More stubbornness and more bias and more ignorance. And some of the most beautiful wisdom I have found is from young children. I am a huge advocate of wise child or wise children. Because even a 4-year-old child has the experience of a 4-year-old, and which is very valid. What is wisdom, you may wonder? Deepak is saying all of these fancy things, but is it really data-centric? All of the Bay Area people, I don't know why they want so much data, but here is the data. Scientific evidence in neuroscience, neurobiology, positive psychology, and anthropology shows that wisdom is not an abstract virtue of religion and philosophy. It is a cognitive skill. And you develop this skill through these 6 sub-skills. And you know what's the biggest difference between intelligence and wisdom? It's the last one on top, pro-social attitudes, working towards common good. An intelligent person will prioritize how this benefits me. A wise person will say, how does this benefit others beyond me? That is the biggest differentiator between a wise and an intelligent person. And that's why when you go to solve a problem to a wise person in your life, in your village, in your community, you think they will act from a place of neutrality, from a place of thinking what the good decision is, not how good friends they are with you to be able to take that decision. You want someone to say the hard truth. You want someone to walk the harsh line and to be able to land at a place where you can navigate uncertainty in your life. I teach for these skills in my classes at MIT, at Stanford, and across the world. But most importantly, I look for these qualities when I meet somebody in a conversation. Wisdom is not unachievable. It is only applied practice. How much can you practice? This is another student of mine, 10 years old, Tegan. Tegan says, I was telling in Pittsburgh when I was teaching for the last few years, I told my class, I think it was class 4 or class 5, I said, I teach a class called Meaning of Life at MIT, and they were like, we can tell you about meaning of life. So I made all of them write like a letter to me because I couldn't hear each one of them one by one. So this is Tegan's letter. The meaning of life is to find who you are and where you belong. The meaning of life is to find happiness. And you can see the spelling of happiness. Happiness is the people you are the happiest with, no matter if those people are your family or if they are your friends. Find the people you laugh with, cry with, and the people who will always be there for you. These people make life better and easier, and sometimes life can be difficult if you only worry about the big things. Enjoy the small things, and don't forget there is always someone who loves you because of who you are. That's a 10-year-old. I have never read a philosophy book, the scriptures, every self-help book that doesn't say the same thing. That doesn't say the same thing. That 10-year-old has figured that out. There are other people and other amazing kids. These are 2 Bay Area kids I took with me to my Africa, Tanzania project with the Maasai, where the women walk 9 hours for water. And when these 2 boys, Roshan and Yuvraj, showed up on day 1 after having done a zillion vaccines that they think they had to take before they land up in Africa, which their Bay Area doctor told them, they also were surprised that they had to walk so much with these women. So I made them walk all like one way, 5 hours for water with Joseph. They walked through these crevices, and when they returned to their school here in Bay Area, they were deeply moved that there was a part of the world where somebody had to walk 9 hours for water every day. So they did what they do best, rallied support of classmates, and across 4 years, raised $120,000 to build 200 water harvesting units in Tanzania. One of them just went to college last week. These are high schoolers whose wisdom has changed the life of 10,000 Maasais and increased the per household income by 50,000 Tanzanian shilling because they don't have to walk for 9 hours for water. And they can use that time to go to school, build jewelry, rear cows, and serve. Wisdom of children. We talk about impact from this very adult lens and age and what we can give. Giving is a matter of intention, not resources. It starts with intention. And these two boys taught me that and have done incredible work. The last story I will leave you with is my favorite story, and it's the most valuable story. Many years ago, I discovered a place in Banaras in India where people check in to die. Have you heard of this place called Mukti Bhavan? I lived there for a time being because I was very curious, what did people who were dying knew about life? The interesting thing about Mukti Bhavan, there were, by the way, 3 such salvation homes. There were hundreds, but now only 3 are left out of 3, only 2 are functional out of 1. Mukti Bhavan is the most fascinating because you only get 2 weeks to stay. If you don't die within 2 weeks, you have to check out. One way or the other, I tell myself. So I thought, wow, that's funny. In 2 weeks, you're dying with the timer on. What if you die as soon as you check out? You're like, oh my God, biggest regret of my life. And so I went there and I started interviewing all the people. A lot of them were very unwell, so they could only get few words out of their system. But more fascinating than the people on the deathbed, and some of them did die in 2 weeks to their credit. I was like, good job, everybody. The most fascinating guy was this guy named Bhairav Nath Shukla. He was the manager of Mukti Bhavan for 44 years. And I knew by the time I was in Mukti Bhavan that everybody who checked in has to pass away in his arms. So one morning I turned to him and I said, Shukla ji, how many people have died in your arms? And he said, 12,136. My research brain told me that's good data. And I asked him, what is one lesson you can tell me that you have learned from 12,000 deaths? He said, Deepak, I like you. I will tell you one for every 1,000. And so he gave me 12 lessons from 12,000 deaths that he had seen. If you Google that online, you'll find the 12 lessons. I'll not take all the time, but I'll leave you one that I promised him I will tell in every talk I give in life and practice myself. And that was, he said, all of those 12,136 people in their last minute had someone to say sorry to and someone to accept sorry from. And it's only in that last 5 minutes they get the courage to say, call so-and-so and say, it's okay. Call so-and-so and say, I'm so sorry. And it was their only way to release whatever they were containing. And he said, my life lesson so for you and the world is, resolve all conflicts before you go. And I said, go where? And he said, oh, I don't mean the world. I mean, before you go to bed. And I was like, Shukla ji, you're kidding me. If I fight with somebody at 8 p.m., I'm not calling them at 11 saying, this is my bedtime. I'm saying sorry because some guy told me in Banaras to resolve conflicts. He said, no, you don't have to call them. But you start writing the text you're going to send them the day you feel ready. And it may take 4 years, it may take your entire 25 years, or it may take 50 years. But the moment you start trying to resolve the conflict the very day it happened, even to yourself, you change the language you use for that person. Because you will not write saying, I hate you even more. If you're trying to resolve the conflict, you will say, I think I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. And as you articulate that, you shift the energy of how you feel about this thing. And it may take you a long time. And I said, and then what happens after I resolve the conflict? Do I go to their house for dinner? Do they come to my house for dinner? And he said, no, sometimes it means I'm done with you. It means not that go harm 10 other people. It just means I am done with you. And so I am going to protect myself. I think of that lesson and I think of the 12,000 people who sacrificed in some way or the other their life to teach us that lesson. And I hope the wisdom of Mr. Shukla, all of those lives, reminds us that we all have wisdom. We all have wisdom. Your children, your partners, your mentees, your employees, your office boy, each one. The only question is, do you have the time to ask? And do you have the patience to harvest it? And if you do, I hope someday you will learn what John Henry Jowett learned. The real measure of our wealth is how much we should be worth if we lost all our money. Thank you. I am... I am deeply... Thank you. I am deeply grateful to MR, who I bumped into at Stanford, and he was like, what do you study and teach? I said, I teach this class called Designing Your Life. And he said, how do you get to teaching Designing Your Life? And I said, oh, I research wisdom. And he's like, I want wisdom. Can you come and share that with the room full of people? So thank you, MR. I am on to building a wisdom lab at MIT. Early next year, I start MIT Wisdom Lab, which is, at an institution like MIT, an amazing place to cultivate this work and research. If you want to take a class, if you want to 10x your wisdom beyond wealth, or if you just want to learn more, write to me, and I would love to invite you to MIT, and we can do things together. Thank you so much, MR, Amita, Nishil, and everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you.